Hello again. As you know, I am Eli, and this is the second class in the A plus track, A plus Troubleshooting Procedures. So if you're a long-time technician, if you've been doing technician more than about 6 months, you may want to skip over this class. This is going to be a rudimentary class. This is one of those classes where I sat there and I thought about it, and it was like, I'm not going to do that class. It's stupid to do the class. I thought, well, maybe I should do the class. It's like, no, it's stupid to do the class. And then I realized, it's funny being a 41-year-old, being somebody that's been doing tech for 20 years. It's easy to remember to forget that the things that I think are completely simple and completely normal and completely common sense, way back when, was something that I actually had to learn. And so that's why we're going to be doing this class today. So again, this is not gonna be overly complicated stuff. There's no gonna be like no mind blowing stuff in this class. Like, oh my golly, Eli, I never realized, right? If you are 15, this is the class for you. If you've been doing tech for a while, you may want to skip this class. So, troubleshooting isn't what most noobs think troubleshooting is, right? So, a lot of noobs, they think, oh, I'm going to go through a boot camp. I'm going to cram all of this knowledge into my head, and then I am just going to be a technological genius. I am going to show the world why they should care about me because I am just going to be so darn smart. And the thing is, the people that go about troubleshooting that way usually don't do very well in their careers because there's a lot more that goes into troubleshooting, especially with dealing with clients and customers and end users, than simply just that raw knowledge and that raw intellect. What you find in the real world, having been an employee, having been a manager, having been a business owner and boss, what you find in the real world is a lot of times the people that are the best at things like troubleshooting, you end up having to fire because nobody wants to deal with them. And here's the thing, if nobody wants to deal with you, then it doesn't matter how good you are, because nobody wants to deal with you, right? So this is one of those things that you need to be thinking about. So when you go into your professional environment, and when I talk about professional environment, I am talking about any environment that many may come anywhere near close to being professional. So a lot of times we talk about professional environments, everybody thinks, oh, when I go to my job, that is a professional environment. And yes, that is a professional environment, but also your boot camp. When you go to your boot camp, or if you go to a training facility to get training in something other than A plus, you can self-study A plus. But again, when you're going off your CCNP boot camp, or you're going off of your, I don't know, iOS or Swift boot camp or something like that, that is a professional environment too. When you're going out and networking at the end of the day, when you're going to meetups, when you're going to tech events, when you're going to anything that has anything to do with your profession, that is a professional environment. The reason this is important is because, like for me, I have gotten jobs and good paying work outside of where I thought I was going to get a job and good paying work, again, by going to events, by going to meetups, by sitting there and having a conversation with somebody, and I thought we were talking about sports or comic books or something, and what they were really trying to figure out whether or not they wanted to hire me. So this is what we're talking about in any kind of professional environment. And so the thing with any kind of professional environment, the first thing that you want to do is present yourself well. Again, having been a manager, having been a boss, having been a business owner, this is a huge issue. This is a massive issue. You have people with degrees and certifications and all this knowledge, and they just look like crap. They walk in, it looks like they rolled out of bed. They literally stink. They don't communicate very well, and you sit there and you're like, ugh. If this is how you treat your body within existence, again, within the existence that we know, your body is the most important thing, the most important possession that you have. And if this is how you treat the most important possession that you have, you're not going anywhere near my surface. Oh, no. So you need to present yourself well in any professional situation. A big thing is to groom yourself. And again, like I say, this is going to be a lowbrow class right here. I'm not, again, there's no high-tech stuff in this class. One of the big things is grooming yourself. You don't know how many techs I've seen who don't brush their hair, who don't brush their teeth, who basically stink. Like a lot of them, they actually smell of body odor. And so, what you have to be thinking about is when you go to a customer or when you go to an end user and you are going to go fix a problem, right? That end user or that customer has to have trust in you. They don't know subnet masks. They don't know the difference between solid state drives and platter drives and all that kind of thing. They are hiring you and they are putting a tremendous amount of trust in you. And so the only way they know whether you're reputable or not is again by their eyeballs. If they look at somebody and they're put together well and they look good, they can go, okay, well obviously this person can pretend to be a human being. If you walk in and you kind of stink and you kind of slovenly and all that, that's all that the end user has to go by. And again, they think if this is how you treat the most important possession that you have within this existence, I'm just not going to trust you, when you're fixing the computer. And this is a big deal too, especially when you're dealing with Windows systems. I don't know, Windows. Oh, many classes will deal with the different operating systems. But Windows is just one of those operating systems where, you can do everything right. You can do everything by the book. And it just doesn't do what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to do it. I've had this, right? Oh, anyway, long story. But you can deal with Windows systems, and basically they won't do what they're supposed to do, and you have to find workarounds, or maybe you just can't fix the problem. Sometimes that happens. And one of the things is when you're dealing with a customer is they're going to have to trust you on whether or not you know what the hell you're talking about. So if you go to an end user, you try to fix a problem, and you can't fix it for whatever reason, whatever issue is going on, there's a security who the hell knows. And you look at the customer, and you look at them in the eye, the end user, and you look at them in the eye, and you say, yeah, we've run into this problem before. This problem can't be fixed. Hopefully in another month or two there will be a patch to fix this problem, but right now you're going to have to deal with it. Right? Again, if you're kempt and you present yourself well, they'll look at you, they'll trust you, and they'll nod their head and they'll say, okay, thank you for trying to fix the problem. And they will smile and they will be happy. Take the exact same situation. You just look like a ball of crap, right? Your hair is all nasty. You kind of smell a little bit. Your clothes are all unkempt and all that. Oh, yeah, this problem just can't be fixed. The end user is going to be like, You're going to walk away, and then you're going to call your manager, or they're going to call the competition and say, this person says it can't be fixed, but I don't trust what they say, to be honest with you. Because again, if they look like that, can I really trust what they say about the computer? So make sure that you're clean, you're well kempt. Again, put on a little deodorant and don't put on a lot of deodorant. This really makes a difference. Another big thing to be thinking about is if you are a smoker, don't smoke a whole hell of a lot on the way to the customer site, or think about how you smell. I actually ran into this with one of my employees way back when, one of the best employees that I had, really good employee, but when he smoked cigarettes, he would have the windows up in his car, and so when he went to client sites, he stunk of cigarettes. And especially in the modern world, again, for my generation, smoking used to be a lot more normal, but now just smoking's not a normal thing. And so in that situation, I would have complaints from customers where they would say he stunk of smoking, of cigarette smoke, and asked me to do something about it. So this is one thing. Again, it seems like a little stupid thing, but again, getting called back in order to do more work. If the customer doesn't want to deal with you, then you don't have a job. Another thing to be thinking about is your actual physical condition. I know this is kind of a touchy subject, especially in the geek world, especially in the tech world, because a lot of times people become techs, people become geeks because, let's just say, they were never going to get on a varsity team in high school. You know what I'm saying? Couple more than a couple of pounds overweight and all that kind of thing. This is something you should be thinking about, again, with getting some physical exercise, with getting a decent diet, is the better physically you look when you present yourself to the customer, to the client, to the boss, the better people are going to be dealing with you. You come in, you're 150 pounds overweight. Again, even if the rest of the grooming, again, however our society should be. I don't know how our society should be. But however our society should be, there is just this mental image. You're dealing with somebody 150 pounds overweight. It makes people a little. So it's one thing to be thinking about again with that physical presentation. And then when you're interacting with the customers, when you're interacting with the clients, again, be respectful and be professional. When you're dealing with the end user, when you're dealing with the customer, when you're dealing with the client, when you're dealing with the boss, these people are not your friends. These people are not your family. These people are either peers or employers or customers. So treat them professionally. Again, in the old days, we used to say sir and ma'am a lot more. When I was 20 years old and I was dealing with a 40-year-old, I would always say, sir, hey, sir, this is what's going on with your computer. Again, now, in this current time frame, I'm not sure sir is always the best thing to go for, but always stay respectful. One of the problems that a lot of people get into, a lot of technicians get into, is they get too comfortable. They get too comfortable, especially in the modern world, especially at the time period that I'm videoing this. People get too comfortable, and then they start talking about too many things. And with politics and other stuff going on, they just start saying things that the customer or the end user is not comfortable with, and then everything can kind of go to hell. So the important thing to think about with this section is, again, is to present yourself well in a troubleshooting scenario. The point is you are supposed to come into a situation. You are supposed to take control of the situation. The customer, the client, the end user is supposed to feel comfortable and trust you so that you can do your job. Simple things: making sure your clothes are clean, making sure your clothes are pressed, making sure that you are kempt, that you brush your teeth, that you put deodorant on, that you essentially say yes sir, yes ma'am. Those sound like stupid little things, but I'm going to tell you, if you do that, your life is going to be so much easier in the real world. Now, when you walk into a troubleshooting situation, the number one thing that you're going to need to do is listen. 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 Does not seem like a complicated subject, but this is something that I see far too many technicians frankly do not do. They walk into a situation and then they just start talking, and then the customer can't, or the client can't get a word in edgewise, and things go poorly. So this is going to be an important thing with troubleshooting, is you have to listen to what the customer or the client or the end user tells you. The way that you do this is by not talking. This is actually a skill. Again, it's one of those weird skills. After you've been doing this for 20 years, you don't think about it too much, but just sitting there and paying attention to what the other person says and staying quiet. One of the big problems you have, especially with new technicians, this is the biggest problem. Like, the way that you can tell a technician is new, the way that you can spot a noob, is the person that never shuts up. Blah, 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 blah. They just keep talking. You're like, oh, that's the noob. Oh, you just hired this person? How did you know I just got hired? Because you just don't stop talking. Because what you find is that when people are dealing with technicians, a lot of times they're nervous, right? There's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of emotions that people don't know how to deal with. Because remember, if you're an accountant and you're dealing with somebody's QuickBooks information and a hard drive fails, if you're a professional and you're dealing with a computer and the computer fails, right? There's real consequences if the data can't be recovered or if the computer can't come back online. So when you're dealing with end users, they've got a lot of emotion and anxiety and things going on. And so one of the problems is if you just keep talking and you don't stop talking to give them an opening, a lot of times they will just nod their head and agree with you no matter what you say. No matter what you say. You just keep talking. You're like, okay, so I've seen a computer like this before. Okay, you got one of these computers. Well, I'm telling you, probably the hamster in the wheel is dead. So have you heard the hamster in the wheel running lately? No, you haven't heard the hamster in the wheel? Yeah, see, the hamster in the wheel is probably dead. So what we're going to do is we're going to get you a new hamster. We're going to shove that hamster in there, and the computer's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. And they're like, okay, yeah, well, you just throw that hamster in the wheel. And of course, there's no hamsters and wheels in computers. But you have to understand, if you keep talking and if you keep pushing things on to the end user, they'll just nod and they'll agree. And the problem is, you will then sit down and you will fix the problems that you think exist. Well, here's the thing. If the end user has a problem and you fix a different problem and then go away, that end user isn't going to be happy. So you just need to learn how to not talk and actually listen to what people are saying so that you can do the appropriate work. Now, with the listening, you're going to have to learn how to ask the right questions. Now, what are the specific right questions? It all depends on the situation that you're in, right? You know, what the environment is, what the business is, who the end user is, so on and so forth. But basically, the right questions are the technical questions about the situation. So when you go in there, this is where you're going to have to learn with your personal troubleshooting style, but basically being able to walk into the situation and ask the questions that you need to ask. So basically, if you go in and they say the network isn't working. Hey, IT professional, the network isn't working. I need the network back up. Right, well, that actually doesn't mean anything, right? That actually, the network isn't working. Right. Well, the network is working to the rest of the business. So the network is working. What's going on here? And so you need to be able to learn how to ask the questions. You're like, okay, so when you use your web browser, are you able to go to websites? Oh, yeah. I'm able to go to websites. Huh, but the network isn't working. Okay, that's interesting. So you're able to go to websites, you're able to do that. So when you go to use your email, let's say it's a corporate environment, you use Outlook. Are you able to get your email? No, I told you. I see. That's what I told you. The network isn't working. Well, then you sit there and like, okay, well, if the web browser is working, you can get to CNN or Google.com. The network is obviously working. That means your IP address is working, your DNS is working, your ISP is working, blah. And so if they're only having an actual problem with Outlook, that means it may be a server problem, like a server configuration problem. Maybe somebody went in and screwed up what the Exchange server configuration is, right? That's the type of questions that you need to ask. You need to be able to walk in and they say, well, you know, I can't do this or I can't do that, and you try to narrow down using questions, what does that actually mean? Because many times people say I can't do something when in reality that they can. And so this is where you have to sit there and you have to listen to what people are saying, and then you have to ask specific questions. Again, like I say, the network isn't working. Okay, does the web browser works? Does the web browser work? No, the web browser doesn't work. Have you used different web browsers? You know, what do you normally use? Well, I normally use Firefox. Okay, have you used Edge or have you used Chrome? And see maybe, and that's how you can narrow down to figure out what the actual problem is, and then from there you can go about trying to fix the problem. Again, one of the big issues. This is the whole listening thing, where people will say the network isn't working, and then you have some noob technician that doesn't ask any questions and doesn't really listen to what the person is saying, and they'll go in there and they'll release and renew the IP address, and the IP address will renew, and they'll ping whatever they need to ping, and you're connected to the network, right? Hey, that noob little technician, the problem is fixed. You are connected to the network, and they walk out. Well, if they're still not receiving the email, then the problem isn't fixed, right? And you can get into the argument. What a lot of noobs do, they get into the argument. Well, that's not what the end user didn't tell me that. But again, you're dealing with people that the reason that you're getting paid good money, the reason you get paid is because the people don't know, right? It's just network, right? CNN and iTunes and Exchange and all that, that's all just network. If any one of those things doesn't work, they don't know what a DNS is or default gateway or anything. They just know network doesn't work. So this is where you need to go in. You need to ask the specific questions. You need to listen to what people are saying so that you can fix the problem that they actually have and not the problem you imagine that they may have. So once you've listened to what the customer, the end user, has to say, once you've asked the appropriate questions, you're going to sit down behind the computer and you're going to start actually doing the physical troubleshooting and trying to figure out what the hell is going on. Hopefully, hopefully at this point in time, the end user goes the hell away. That's what you want to have happen. That's what you want to have happen. You want to have the customer, you want to have the end user go away. Unfortunately, the real world is you normally can't tell them to go away, and so a lot of times they're going to plop down at a chair and a table in the same office, and at that point, while you're troubleshooting, a lot of times people are going to want to chit-chat. They're going to want to talk about things. And at this point, as long as you have listened to what the actual problem is that they have, as long as you've asked the right questions, as long as you're doing the normal troubleshooting, this is just a normal thing. It makes them feel like you are a human being. Again, the more they feel like you're a human being, the more that the end user likes you, the easier your life is going to go, right? Because again, you get paid to fix problems. If nobody wants to deal with you, then you're not going to have any problems to fix, which means you're not going to get paid, right? So if people are comfortable with you, that just makes life a lot better. One of the big issues that I see that people get into is they start getting involved in office politics and office drama, and that can go very poorly. So you walk into a business, you've got 20, 30, 40, 100 people, and whenever you got a lot of people together, there's going to be drama. The problem is as a technician, you are going to be dealing with everybody. You're going to be dealing with everybody. You're going to be dealing with the CEOs and the warehouse workers and the managers and the secretaries and at this point probably janitors at mobile devices, right? You are going to be dealing with everybody. So the problem is if you start showing visible favoritism for people, or if you start taking sides, you may feel good because those people like you more. But in office politics, if you take one person's side, that means you're de facto against somebody else, and everything can go to hell. So one of the things that I would say is if you're going to be doing the normal chit chat, people are going to be talking with you, keep it on the technical and the business level. If you're going to be talking about things, keep it away from office politics. You're sitting there, you're working on the computer, go, oh, okay, this computer is about 3 or 4 years old. Have you thought about upgrading computers? Oh, yeah, we thought about upgrading computers, but not really sure if I want to go with a Lenovo or a Dell. Oh, well, I have to say, the Dell has some very good new computers out there. I really like some of the new models that Dell has, but for the business environment, Lenovo seems pretty good. So you can have this nice, long, just conversation and keep it all in the technical realm. What a lot of people do is they like that drama. They like that juiciness. They like to get into the intrigue. And the problem is, again, you may make the person in front of you very happy, but when the secretary finds out that she's being talked about between you and the boss, then they're not going to be happy with you, and everything goes to hell. So keep it in the tech world, keep it in the business world. Basically, don't talk about anybody in the office. Don't talk about the customers personality-wise. Don't talk about them in derogatory ways. Everybody's good for you. You like everybody, right? As long as you pay the invoice, I like you, right? You keep it at that level, and again, your life is going to be a lot easier. Now, when you get into the troubleshooting, the first thing that you should always ask, once you get through all of the what the hell's going on, blase, 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 is where is the documentation, or do you have documentation? Again, the big thing in the IT world is configurations, right? That's what we do. We open up config files, we plug in configurations, and a lot of this stuff is unique to your environment. So server names are unique to the environment, usernames are unique to the environment, static IP addresses are unique to environment. You don't just know this stuff. Somebody, when they were building the infrastructure, made up all these names, 10 years ago, and you need to know what those names are. You need to know what those user accounts are in order to do whatever it is you need to do. Again, with the whole thing with Outlook and the Exchange server, if there's a problem with Outlook communicating with the Exchange server, You need to know what the name of the Exchange server is. You need to know if the Exchange server is working on the default ports, or maybe there's some different type of configuration and somebody went in there and screwed things up. So when you sit down, you're going to be going through the troubleshooting process. One of the things that you should ask for is, do you have any documentation, and can I have the documentation so you can go in there and deal with it? Again, this is one of those things, gets a lot of noobs in trouble where, if there's a hyphen in a place where the hyphen shouldn't be, if there's a dot in the place the dot shouldn't be, if you're using Linux, if things are capitalized or lowercase when they should be lowercase instead of capitalized, that can cause all kinds of problems. And so by having documentation, you can sit there and you can look at the documentation and you can look at what the configuration actually is. Oh, now I see what the problem. So that's one of the big things that you should ask for. And this is the kind of stuff that, again, you're just never going to know this. This isn't something that can be put into a test. All servers are going to have their own weird-ass server names. All domains are going to have their own weird-ass domain names. All the user accounts, that kind of thing. The only way you can know that is by documentation. On the converse, on the flip side of that, when you do work and you do modify things, you do need to document what you're doing. So if you go in, and if you're going to be changing configurations or anything like that, you should type out or you should write out what configurations that you're changing, if it's unique to whatever system, and then you should give that to the end user or the customer as documentation for what happened. Again, for most businesses, when I used to walk in there as a consultant, I would ask for documentation, and it used to be a mess, right? Like, you would just get this folder, and like literally, oh, it's kind of interesting sometimes. You'd open the folder, and there'd be invoices in there. There'd be all kinds of stuff in there. And somewhere in that whole pile of invoices and licensing and everything else, you would find the one typewritten piece of paper that gave you the information for the Exchange server or whatever else. And so basically, you need to ask for that documentation, and you need to make sure that you document what you do so the next technician that comes in behind you will know what the hell's happening. That is how you know the difference between good technicians versus technicians that can barely do the job. Essentially, a good technician leaves an environment a new technician can walk into and be able to work in. Right? Basically, what you should think about is, if you fall over dead from a heart attack, the question about whether you've been a good technician or a bad technician is, can a new technician walk into the environment and within a reasonable amount of time get up to speed? If somebody can, then you've been a good little technician in your life. If somebody can't, you have sucked at your job. I don't care what your title is. I don't care how much money you've gotten paid. If somebody can't walk into your environment and be able to get up to speed relatively quickly, that means you have failed. The next thing with troubleshooting that goes along with the whole idea of documentation is making sure that licensing is in order, especially if you're in the Windows world. I like Microsoft for a lot of things. I'm not really a fanboy for any particular product, right? I use Mac, I use Windows for certain things, I use Linux for other things. And there's a lot of stuff that Microsoft and Windows does extraordinarily well. Again, Microsoft Active Directory in the enterprise environment, it is a beautiful thing. One of the things they suck at, one of the things that's horrible, is their licensing scheme. Oh my God, I do not know what pissed off lawyer came up with their licensing scheme, but that was one sadistic SOB, right? And so with a lot of software that you're going to be dealing with, you're going to have license keys in order to reinstall the software, and you're going to need to know where the hell those license keys are at. Basically, whether or not the job you're walking into is going to be easy or absolutely miserable will be dependent upon the license keys. So especially like in the Microsoft world, in the Windows world, when you get viruses, when you get spyware, when people just really screw up a computer, again, especially like in the enterprise environment, you walk into an enterprise environment, you're sitting down at a computer that's 2 years old, that 10 people have been using over those 2 years, it's got viruses or spyware on there, you're trying to go in there and fix it. Really, at the end of the day, you can tear your hair out trying to fix the computer, or you can just simply wipe and reload the darn thing and have it up and running in an hour. But in order to do the wipe and reload, you need to make sure you have the Windows keys. You got to make sure if you're not using Office 365, you're using an old version of Office, that you have the Office keys. You may have other things like AutoCAD or something on there. And the problem that you run into a lot of times is that people don't know where those license keys are. So instead of doing a simple wipe and reload or something that's very easy, you're going to have to sit there and you're going to have to troubleshoot through an absolutely miserable problem that there's a good chance that you're not actually going to be able to fix. So this is something that you're going to have to be thinking about whenever you sit down at a computer, whenever you walk into a new environment, is try to make sure that all the licensing is in order. When you sit down at a computer, what's the operating system? Can you get your hands on the operating system license? Can you get your hands on the Office license? Can you get your hands on the AutoCAD license or whatever else? If you can't, then you need to try to find that, put all of that together in one central location so that you do have it. Because again, like, one of the issues that you get into in troubleshooting in the real world is that, oh, there's the idea of what the work is going to be like, and then what the real work is. And that's the thing, like with the troubleshooting, is if you have all your licensing in order, being able to fix problems is very easy. Again, maybe you have to uninstall. Sometimes I've had that problem where you have to uninstall the software and reinstall it, and simply by reinstalling it fixes everything. Well, the thing is, if you don't have the license key, you can't uninstall and reinstall, right? So the licensing is incredibly important. So you need to make sure that you know where the licensing is at. And again, in your free time, if you do have to sit down and deal with a computer that doesn't have the licensing, when you get done with that, then you need to go to the boss and you need to slowly get all of this licensing together so that in the future, if you have a problem, you know where it's at. So I'm going to tell you who your best friend in the whole wide world is going to be. That's right. You thought you had a best friend. You're sitting there, you're like, no, Eli, I'm married. I'm married to my best friend. Oh, no, your spouse is not your best friend. Your best friend is going to be your work order system. So as an A-plus technician, as a desktop technician, your best friend in the whole wide world is going to be the work order system. This is basically, normally they talk about tickets. So somebody has to get a ticket created in order to have a problem solved, and that goes through your work order system. Whatever work order system you use at this point, now there's 1,000 different ones. Again, back in the day, I think we used to use Tivoli. We used Tivoli back in the day, but there's a lot. Kayako. I use Kayak. I think it was Kayako for my company. But there's a lot of different options out there. Basically, what the work order system does, it allows customers or clients or end users to submit a problem. Basically, they call the help desk, or now there's probably some self-service thing, and they say, my internet doesn't work, or my network doesn't work. And you sit there and you scratch your head and you're like, but it's a self-service system that requires a web browser, and you're saying your network doesn't work. That doesn't make any sense. I have to ask a few questions here. Right, but basically what happens is, if you're working in any kind of company in any size, again, when I say size, even if you have 5 people in your company, you should have a work order system. And this is how you're going to track the progress of any work that you're going to be doing. So essentially, the end user, they say that they have a problem. The help desk, or that self-service portal, it creates a new work order. It creates a new ticket. That gets routed to you by however it gets routed. So back when I worked in the enterprise world, it would go into a pool. And so me and the people that I worked with, when we got done with one work order, we would open up. We would see what the open work orders are. We would select the ones that we wanted to be responsible for. We would assign them to ourselves, and then we would go and we would deal with the work order. What makes work orders very nice is this is a way to document how much work that you have done. Again, remember, as a desktop support person, that you are working within a corporate environment, and corporations work off of money. Money, 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 money. Well, the thing is, when you're running around and you're doing work, the CEO or the CIO or the CTO has to figure out how to allocate monetary resources. Basically, do we need to hire another desktop support technician? Do we need to give our desktop support technicians more training? Do we need to give them more support or more services, right? If you have a work order system and you do 2 work orders a day, if I'm the CIO or the CTO, guess what? Your department's not getting another dime. If basically, if the technicians in your department in an 8-hour day are closing 2 work orders a day, that basically means we're probably going to be getting rid of one of the technicians because obviously you have too many, right? I mean, a work order system allows the corporation to track what's going on. If technicians in a department are doing 8 or 10 work orders in a day, that's when they go, oh, these people are probably overworked, so that we need to hire somebody. And so it's very important. Like a lot of technicians, a lot of A+ level, they're like, oh, this is stupid. Why my end user, they shouldn't have to put in a work order just for me to fix their printer, because they're thinking about themselves, right? Okay, I'm at the end user's desk. I know how to fix the printer, so I'm just going to sit down and I'm going to fix the printer. There's no reason for a work order to get created. Well, if you do that work and no work order is created, then your CTO, then your CIO, then your CEO, then your manager has no way to actually see that you did that work. And so this is one of the places where you see a lot of desktop technicians where they're being run ragged. They're being run into the ground. But as far as the management is concerned, there's no work. Why are you whining and complaining and bitching all the time? We have a work order system. I go into the work order system. You do 4 work orders a day in an 8-hour day. What are you complaining about? Well, because there's all this other work that you're doing that's not documented because you're not forcing the end users to go and to create tickets. So the big thing to understand about work order system, really the priority is so that your bosses know how much work is being done so that they can allocate resources properly. I see this so much again with the desktop support people. Again, those little smug little 20-year-olds. Don't worry, end user. I'm not going to be mean. I'm not going to force you to call the help desk and create a ticket because I'm a good technician. Well, then your management has no idea how much work you're actually doing, and yeah, you can figure out how bad that's going to go for you. So that's the big part of work order and ticketing systems. Beyond that, the good part with work order and ticketing systems too is if you keep them up to date whenever you're doing work, you can type that work out, and normally nowadays the end user can see what's going on. Again, a big thing with end users is the more that they feel like you're communicating with them and telling them what's happening, the more comfortable they'll be, right? So if they put in a work order and then they don't hear anything for 4 days, it's just human to think that they got forgotten about. Whereas if you're going in and every day you're plugging in, it's like, okay, so I went to fix the computer today, but I need to do a wipe and reload, and so I need to find the licensing. And then the next day I went to find the licensing. It appears that the licensing was lost, so I need to go to my boss to see about buying new licensing. Okay, I went to my boss. He agreed that we need to buy new licensing, so I put in a procurement order, and we should get the new licensing in a couple of days, right? If all of that is documented, people feel a lot more comfortable. It also allows you to keep track of what's going on and not lose track of things. Again, like with me back in the corporate world, I might have 10 work orders open at any one time. Trying to remember the progress of all 10 work orders isn't going to happen. If you document what you're doing as you do it, then it's very easy to scroll back and see where you're at. So your work order, your ticketing system is going to be your best buddy. It's going to be your best friend. Please treat it like your best buddy and your best friend. I swear to you, it will be good for your sanity and it will be good for your career. Now we get to the troubleshooting part. It's going to actually be a pretty short part. You're going to be like, wait a minute, this was supposed to be like A+ troubleshooting or whatever. Well, we have one little section on troubleshooting. All this other stuff that you don't think is troubleshooting, that's actually the really important stuff. The actual troubleshooting itself, you'll pick it up as you go. So basically what you have to understand with troubleshooting any problem, is troubleshooting itself is a skill. If you can learn how to troubleshoot, you will be able to take the troubleshooting skill, whether you're trying to troubleshoot a computer or troubleshoot a car, it is basically the same thing. So essentially when you go in, what you're trying to do is you're trying to figure out where the problem actually is. So again, you go and they say my computer is not working. The end user says my computer is not working. And so you have to figure out what does that actually mean, and then you have to narrow down and figure out where the real problem is and go from there. So if you go in and somebody says the network's not working, so the first thing that you need to do is you think, okay, well let me open up a web browser and see if I can get to CNN.com. Then you try to get to CNN.com. Okay, well, no, it doesn't get to CNN.com. Okay, well then can I get to whatever your router is, or maybe an internal website? If you can get to an internal website, then you know, okay, the network is working, but I'm not able to get out to the wider world. Let's see what that issue is. Maybe that's a DNS issue, maybe that's an ISP issue, that type of thing. Or if you can't get to an internal website, maybe that's where you unplug the computer, you plug your laptop into the network cable that's attached to the computer, and then you see if you can get to the internet. So if your computer can get to the internet using that network cable, then you know it's not a network cable problem, it's something to do with the computer itself. And basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to narrow down where the issue is. You think about this with troubleshooting. I had a problem back in the day where we had a T1 line. So this was up in Boston, and it was one of these weird things where the T1 line was run under the parking lot into the building. And so when I was dealing with that particular office, they were always having network problems. They were always having network problems. So I went there and we troubleshooted everything. So we troubleshooted, okay, the router's working, okay, troubleshooting the switch is working, troubleshoot the server is working. We're troubleshooting all these different issues. And so finally, at the end of the day, I called up our datacom department and said, well, basically all the internal networking is working completely fine. I've tested everything is working fine, but we're still seeing drop packets. Whenever we would do pings, we would see drop packets. So I know we're fine. So basically what I was able to say is I know our internal network is fine. Whatever else is somebody else's problem. Well, the datacom department says, well, it's not our problem. We've got all best of class, brand new equipment, so it's not our problem. So we sit there and it's like, okay, well, it's not the local area network problem. It's not the server, the router, switches, and it's not the datacom department problem. So then the only person left is the ISP, and then the ISP says, oh, it's not our problem. But we know our thing is good here. We know that thing is good here. And so by doing all the troubleshooting and then beating the hell out of the ISP for a while, what we found out, and I hadn't realized, was that the network cable went from their DMARC for the ISP that was on one side of the parking lot. The cable went under the parking lot into the building. Well, apparently that parking lot literally floods. Like once a month, it floods for whatever reason. The drainage is really horrible. And so somehow water had been able to get into that network cable that went under the parking lot and corroded it. So it wasn't a bad network cable, but it was a corroded network cable, and so that's what started causing the problems with the network connectivity, basically the dropped packets and all that kind of stuff. And so this is where you need to be thinking about with the troubleshooting is you try to work the problem. You try to see, okay, they say this is what the problem is, so what does that actually mean? Let me connect my laptop to the network cable. Okay, so laptop can get out, it can do all the normal stuff, so it's not the network cable. It's up. Okay, plug it in. Can you get your email? Okay, well, if you can get your email, then that means your network connectivity to the Exchange server is working. Then you go through the pings, then you go through all this other stuff, and basically you're just simply with the troubleshooting techniques, you're trying to narrow down to figure out what is actually going on. And again, this is a skill. This is one of those things where I tell people it's good to do like DIY stuff in your own house. Again, plumbing, DIY plumbing. DIY, change the oil in your own car, because the same skills that you're going to use with DIY projects are going to be the same mental skills you use with troubleshooting. Okay, this was supposed to work. What I thought was going to happen was this. Instead, I got this. Okay, so why do these two things not match? And then figure out what the actual problem really is. Okay, so now you've listened to the problem, you've asked the appropriate questions, you've kept the chat and the conversation technically oriented, you've done the troubleshooting, hopefully you fixed the problem, but did you fix the problem? Did you actually fix the problem? Now, what's important as a technology professional and what's important as a support engineer is that if you don't fix the problem, that you give the end user, that you give the client an actionable plan. So this is an important thing. So especially with a lot of noobs, a lot of new people, what they do is they go in, they go to fix the problem, and then for whatever reason, they can't fix it. It's not the networking equipment, it's the ISP is the problem, or something else. It's basically it's something outside of their pay grade, above their pay grade. They can't fix it, and then they go, can't fix it, not my problem anymore. Well, here's the thing. That doesn't help the end user. That doesn't help the client, right? Then they're still screwed and they don't know what to do. So what you need to do is if you can't fix the problem, you need to give the end user, you need to give the client an actionable plan on how to fix the problem. So let's say you go in, you're trying to they're having a problem with bandwidth, they're having a problem with the internet not working, and then you find out, oh, in fact, you actually have a T1 connection. Considering the date when you said you had a T1 connection, I didn't actually think you meant you had a 1.544 megabit per second connection for 50 users. I just thought when you said T1, you just meant you had an internet connection, not an actual T1 connection, right? So your network problem, your internet problem is you don't have anywhere near the bandwidth in order to be able to do what you need to do on the internet. So a lot of technicians will be like, so there's nothing I can do. It's not the router problem. It's not the switch problem. You don't have enough internet. And then they walk away. And then the end user's like, oh, okay, what do I do now? And then they're frustrated, and then they're kind of pissy, and that just doesn't help anybody. So you need to give the people an actionable plan. So you need to go to them. Look, I tested your networking equipment. I tested everything. This is the speeds that you're getting. The speeds that you're getting is because you have a 1.544 connection. I have no idea how you got to this point in time with an actual T1. So what you need to do is you need to upgrade so that you have enough bandwidth. 50 megabit per second or 100 megabit per second connection is what you need. In our area, you can go with Comcast. They have business class internet. They'll give you 100 megabits per second connection for a couple $100 a month. Or you can go with Verizon Fios. So here we have Verizon Fios. Or you can go with Verizon Fios. They can give you, about the same internet connection for about $200 a month. I would prefer, if it's me, I would prefer Fios over Comcast, and so I would say that you need to call Verizon Business Class Internet in order to purchase services from them. Would you like me to do it? Now this, the next part goes into what you're actually authorized to do. Now, if I'm a consultant, I'll ask the client if they want me to do it for the billable hourly rate, right? Okay, you don't have enough internet connection. I would suggest you get Verizon Fios Business Class. Do you want me to call Verizon Fios Business and set this up, or do you want to do it? And that gives them an actionable plan on how to make it better. Again, if their computer dies, okay, you're working on this laptop computer. You're working on the laptop computer. You find out the motherboard and the laptop. You do the troubleshooting. And you figure the motherboard and the laptop computer is fried. You look at it. It's a 4-year-old laptop computer. So you go to the customer. You go to the end user. You say, okay, I can't fix it because it's a motherboard problem. Being that this is a 4-year-old laptop, it's not worth actually trying to swap the motherboard on this thing. So do you want me to buy another laptop for you, and do you want me to do the migration? At that point, you give them an actionable plan. The laptop cannot be fixed. The computer cannot be fixed. You need a new one. This is what I would suggest. Dell has some good things, or Lenovo or whatever. This is what I would suggest you go with. Do you want me to continue working on this, or do you want to take it yourself? It is an actionable plan. It is something that the end user can do something with, and that's what you need to do. If you walk away with the problem not being fixed and the end user not knowing what the hell to do next, you have failed. You have not done your job. You either fix a problem or you give them an actionable plan. Beyond that, when you get done working on the computer, working whatever problems, the other thing you need to do is you need to ask, is there anything else? Especially as a desktop support technician, it's, you're going to spend a lot of time running around, going to different computers, going to different users. So the more problems you can fix at one time, the better your life is going to be, the more efficient you're going to be. So if you sit down and you're working, let's say, to fix the network problem, you get that fixed. You show the end user, okay, you had a network problem, your email wasn't working. I configured the Exchange server. There was a problem with the Exchange server. Now your email is working. Are there any other problems? Why, yes. The printer is also not working. It hasn't been working for a couple of weeks now. So you're already sitting there. So again, with the work order system, you say, okay, can you please call the help desk or however you do it and submit a work order? And since I'm here right now, I will fix your printer. And then you go and you troubleshoot the printer. Okay, is there anything else? And so that's a big thing. Again, like, right? Your entire job is to make the end user's life better, right? But so many, again, especially like the A+ technician levels, they just think it's about the work order. They just think, I don't know what they think their job is actually about, but they're just trying to get in and out as fast as possible. And what ends up happening is that the end user doesn't end up being happy, and then the end user doesn't like dealing with that desktop support person, and then everything goes to hell. So you want to go in there, you want to fix the problem, you want to give an actionable plan if you can't fix the problem, and then you want to say, is there anything else? If there is, make sure they create another ticket for you, fix that other problem. Is there anything else? Okay, so we fixed your email problem, we fixed your printer problem. Is there anything else? Well, I haven't been able to get my email on my iPhone. Okay. Create another work order for me. Let me fix your iPhone. Oh, your iPhone. So your email is fixed, your printer is fixed, and your iPhone is fixed. Is there anything? No. And here's the thing. That end user is going to love you. When there's a problem, you're going to be the person to call, which means you're going to get more experience, which means you're most likely to get the promotion, so on and so forth. Why? Because you fix all the problems. When you come in, you are nice, you listen to them, you have conversations that have nothing to do with office politics, you fix all their problems, and then you go the hell away. That's what end users want at the end of the day. So that's what we got in the class for A+ troubleshooting procedures. Probably sitting there like, I don't know how I feel about this class, Eli. I don't know. You had like 10 sections here, and like only one kind of sort of talked about actual troubleshooting. I mean, you're talking about listening to people, and you're talking about being dressed all nice. Eli, I just don't understand, what this has to do with troubleshooting. And here's the thing. If you're going for your A+, you probably don't understand what this has to do with troubleshooting. As somebody that's been doing this for a couple of decades now, believe me, what I talked about in this class has everything to do in the world with troubleshooting. You want to go in and you want to present the end user, you want to present the customer with somebody that is trustworthy. You want to walk in there, you want the end user to feel like you have control over the situation, you want them to trust you, and you want them to be happy when you walk away. By walking in and being presentable, again, having clean clothes, having your hair brushed, brushing your teeth. You just don't know. Brushing your teeth, putting on deodorant, again, getting out to the gym every once in a while. Right? It really does make a difference. Listening to people. I have seen, again, 20-year-olds, man, the noobs, they just don't stop talking. They never stop talking. Ever. And so the problem is they walk into a troubleshooting situation and they don't stop talking, so they never listen to the problem that the end user actually has. So the end user is trying to say their problem, but the technician keeps talking, and then the technician fixes the problem that the technician wants to fix. And yeah, that's just not going to go well, right? These are things that matter. Understanding documentation, getting the documentation, writing down documentation as you do work, dealing with your work order systems, dealing with licensing. Licensing is a huge issue, especially in the Microsoft world. All of these things are going to make your life a lot easier, and all of these things are very integral to the troubleshooting process, and too many times they're overlooked. The actual troubleshooting itself, basically what you need to do is you need to look at the problem. You need to listen to what the problem actually is, and then you just need to work the process. Okay, if you say the network isn't working, let me sit down in the computer and let me bring up CNN. If I can bring up CNN.com, that means you have an IP address. It means your DNS is working. It means your ISP is working. It means your cable's connected, which means your network actually works. So the network's not actually the problem. So what is actually the problem? Oh, okay, your email's not working. Well, since we know the network connection is all that's working, let me go and let me take a look at that. Let me ping the Exchange server. Can I actually ping and reach the Exchange server? Yes, I can ping the Exchange server. Okay, well, if I can ping the Exchange server, then again, we know that I'm connected to the network. We know this should work, so why isn't this working? Let me open up the Exchange the configurations for the Exchange server and make sure somebody didn't screw up the server name or something like that. Just go through the troubleshooting process. That is actually pretty easy. You will learn that as you go, but it's a lot of these other tasks, it's a lot of these other things that people just completely overlook, and then they have a lot of problems. So this is the second class in the A+ track. I guess the next class we're going to be doing is talking about the tools and all that, and then we'll start getting into the more technical thing. But I will tell you, for all the noobs out there, you all want to run into the technical stuff. You all want to get into IP configurations and drives and all that kind of thing, and you completely skip over some of the most important things for actually being a professional. And so I'm trying to give you that foundation here. So as always, I enjoyed teaching this class and look forward to seeing you at the next one.